Let's appreciate the power of style. Style is about working out what works for you to allow you to be the best version of yourself, whatever form that takes. The food we eat can profoundly influence our well-being and self-perception. After all, who doesn't want to feel the best version of themselves? In 2022, the science and nutrition company Zoe commissioned a randomized controlled trial, the most rigorous test science has to offer. The results were published in Nature Medicine, which is basically the Oscars of the science world. It showed Zoe to be more effective in improving health than government advice. Participants saw reductions in blood fat, body weight, and waist size. They had better blood sugar control and saw an increase in their good gut bacteria. Crucially, those doing Zoe also felt better. They were twice as likely to report improved mood and feeling less hungry, and 4 times more likely to report better sleep and more energy. Zoe has helped its participants to feel like the best version of themselves. If you're curious about aligning your nutrition with your lifestyle, you should give Zoe's personalized nutrition program a try. The first step is easy. Go to zoe.com and take the free quiz. Use the code STYLE10 to get 10% off. That's zoe.com and use code STYLE10 for your special Style DNA discount. Today, I'm going on a style journey with the retired ballerina, the president of the Royal Academy of Dance, presenter, judge, and classical ballet coach at the Royal Ballet Company, the dazzling and divine Dame Darcey Bussell DBE.
Ooh.
Hello and welcome, Darcey.
Oh, thank you, Amanda.
It's such a privilege to have you here, such a treat. And I have to say, you have been, this is real fangirl stuff, you've been my all-time favourite ballerina, because not only were you unbelievably technical, but you danced with such a musicality and flair and sheer joy. And in fact, my nephew reminded me the other night, he said that his father, my brother, absolutely loved you, had a complete crush on you.
Oh,
So
how lovely. Thank
there
you.
you go. There you go.
Lovely.
I have to say, coming to watch you, very sweetly, you invited me to watch you coach 2 of the principals for Cinderella at the Royal Opera House last week. Was so magical. It was proper bucket list stuff for me.
Yes.
How much time does the Royal Ballet Company take up for you now?
Well, it's not a full-time job, which is lucky, and I can dab in and out. So I come in for intensive periods of about 2 to 3 months for a production, and I'll work with 2 to 3 couples, principals, young principals, and so it's kind of getting probably the best bit of the job, really. I mean, I remember my coach being very dear to me for 20 years. So I just hope that I'm giving them the same sort of knowledge and kind of those golden nuggets that I remember getting from my coach.
Well, it seemed to me it really was golden nuggets. It was just the tilt of a head or just a tiny element of the hands, or it was just tweaks. And it was absolutely beautiful to watch. And they were just like sponges soaking it up.
Well, I mean, it's so lovely. I mean, we've got such an amazing repertoire in the Royal Ballet Company. We have such diversity. But when you come back to some of the classics like Sir Frederick Ashton's, who was our founder, choreographer, those pieces to really tune to the style that was Ashton and sort of what you say is British ballet is incredibly important. So to get those finer details right, so we don't look like every other company. We all have to have our distinctive style, and that's important that we hold on to that. And so I'm really always looking for that. But it's often not just, as you say, a tilt of a head or a mannerism. It's very much through the musical side of it as well. Yeah, so Frederick Ashton being our founding choreographer, just to emphasize his style and what he was about with all his ballets is so important that we hold on to, because that's our unique style of British ballet. That's what we stand for.
And how would you define that?
Through musicality,
Yeah.
definitely. So how he emphasized things, the movement in the upper body, incredibly important. How he bends from the waist, using the torso a lot, the port de bras, and then the detail in the footwork. It was quite intricate, but his timing. I think he was, a great choreographer, obviously, a genius of a choreographer, but he was very clever with comedy as well, and keeping things light, and those pauses and those emphases in the music really help accentuate how brilliant the step can be, or how soft it can be. He's very clever in those. So you don't need a language. The language is the movement. You don't need to say any words to understand what's going on. And he was brilliant at that.
That's a lovely description. And it always strikes me that there's a lot of acting in ballet.
Yes, I mean, obviously there's quite a lot of abstract works, but we are probably very famous for our narrative ballets, and it does make a big difference if those dancers can really fall into the role and feel like they're encompassing that character. And it's not too difficult in the big classics because of the princess, but you are telling a lot of story in a very short time. So you do have to be a little bit more obvious sometimes, but we don't want it to be pantomime, of course. It's got to still be subtle, but it's also got to travel across, the orchestra pit right into the auditorium. And so to get those subtleties right, a lot of dancers love to look at the floor and feel that they're being really into themselves and feeling something. But actually, if you don't project and look up and give the audience, your eyes and the whites of your eyes, it's, we sometimes miss a lot.
Lovely. I mean, I know you're passionate about dance and the importance of the creative industries in general. I mean, let's just talk about that for a moment, because I know you've doing dance academies and all of that, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about.
Oh, thank you, Amanda. Yes, I mean, I could bore you senseless with all the kind of journeys I've gone down. Since I've retired as a ballerina, I've realized that the attributes of dance are incredibly large, besides our physical and our mental health, but just how they change how people react to you in society, how you read body language. When you understand your body and how it moves and the emotional ranges, you learn that from the arts, and especially from dance. And so to find that out when I left, how I was missing that from my own life, I really felt that my daughters growing up in physical education at school, that they needed a lot more diversity to be able to feel, I suppose, what you say, present and alive, all their senses awakened. And, physical activity is such an important part. But if we can go that bit further and say how it can help our emotional state as well. And I think dance has that. So I set up one charity where it's called Diverse Dance Mix, where we're just celebrating 10 years, where we put dance fitness into state schools, but primary mainly. And then also I've started another kind of company, which is called Move Ashore, which with a professor, Dr. Peter Lovett, and all his work is around movement and dance. And it's as a social prescription, so that you can do a program over 20 weeks, 60 sessions over that time, where it can help you just with your everyday activities, just helping you build a structure. It's not just about fitness. We always think, dance is for fitness, this is what we're doing. But it's not actually. It's just for our mental health as well. And we forget how brilliant it is.
So uplifting to dance.
So uplifting, but also just how we communicate with people, how we interact with people. We learn that from dance. We have this bond when we dance together, we kind of laugh, but it does make you look at the good in people instead of the negative. And I think that's really important, that we keep recognizing that and notice what the attributes of dance can help with.
How lovely. How have you detuned your body post 8 hours a day?
I think that's a really good way of saying.
But I mean, you must have been training for 8 hours a day at times?
Yeah, very much. I mean, it was very hard to have any time off because it's a short career. So it was always very concentrated. And you're right, it was very intense. And it was probably to an extreme as well. It's not any old dance style. Classical ballet is
How
quite...
are those toes?
Yeah, the toes are still working, luckily. Yeah, it was a hard thing to wind down from. I think I was very fortunate. By the end of my career, I had two children, so 2 daughters, and that kind of gave me that distance where I was able to step back and look at it from afar because I had another life where I had to focus on as well with my kids. And so it gave me a bit of perspective of how I was going to do that job and step away from being a full-time classical ballerina. And it's really odd when I say it like that because it is, you just live and breathe it.
Yeah.
And it's very... I think was very hard. I thought, I was so ready. I'd given myself a good year or 2 to adjust to the idea that I was going to stop and how I was going to stop. And I was recommended that I should maybe go into another project as soon as I finished, so it wasn't that total kind of close the door. So I went into a kind of commercial project with Catherine Jenkins, actually.
Yes.
Yeah, called Viva La Diva. Yeah, well done, Viva La Diva. And that was really exciting, actually, to focus on something more commercial and totally our idea as well, which was really exciting. So that was very helpful. But it was the family. I think the people you work with, it's that kind of bond you've created for years and years. And we're so close to those people because we come through school together, go into the company together, and you live and breathe the ups and downs together. We're very open. Dancers are very expressive. Yeah. We tell each other everything. We don't, and so it's really hard when you don't have those people around you 24.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, does sort of a company like the Royal Ballet Company, does it help ballerinas and dancers as they retire? Does it give them guidance? Because it's a huge sort of step off the diving board, isn't it?
No, I mean, I don't believe it's their job to give us guidance at all. I think that is up to us. I mean, we're adults and we had a really long career. I was very fortunate and I did an awful lot and I worked with a lot of people. I think, everybody warns you that it's going to be tough. And I think, from stepping away from such a passion that you've loved so much and you've dedicated so much to, it is going to hit you. I don't think you realize how much it's going to hit you. Yeah. I thought there was a death in the family, that kind of feeling.
But you are grieving something.
Yes,
really.
Yeah, it is really odd.
Sort of appreciating that and saying, that's fine, I will grieve it.
Yeah, exactly that. You have to take it on and go, okay, I didn't know I was going to feel as traumatized as I am, but let's focus that energy into something else and work the problem. That's when I realized I couldn't not be in the studio. Yeah. So I had to go back and do something, even if it was Zumba or my own dance fitness or something to keep my body moving or to have that stimulation, because it's very weird not to move your body anymore when that's all you've done.
Darcey, I've never seen you not move your body.
It's hard for me to keep still. So it's a natural in me. I know I can't escape that. But of course I had to back off because I had worn it tough, it had worn down. So I could never do anything to the extreme that I had. And that was very important that I understood that and that I stepped back. And I didn't expect my body to do more or my mind to be that intense in something.
But is it quite difficult to literally go from 8 hours to maybe an hour or 2 a day? Do you have to literally sort of detune your body?
I didn't think of it like that. But I suppose you feel those moments where you're not being as active with other activities. They're not the intense, training. I mean, a lot of dancers in retirement still do their ballet class every day. Yeah. And I really didn't want to do that.
You've done enough.
I kind of No, I'm not going to be happy doing that. I know I didn't want to push my turnout because everything is obviously in rotation and turnout,
Yes.
which is incredibly important for our lines and why we're classical dancers, that why we're not contemporary dancers or why we're not, ballroom or anything else because of the turnout. So all our lines. So to relax that was really important for me. So I loved doing dance fitness. I thought that was great fun. And I tried lots of different things. And so that kept me ticking, I suppose, and kept what was really important that I found out very quickly is that joints had to be oiled constantly. That doesn't stop.
And how do you oil them? Top tips.
Well, I mean, I love reading so much about how we keep our body strong and supple and things like that. But I think, there's the natural things, with yoga and those gurus where every joint has to be rotated every day. And so doing a circle of your wrists, doing your elbows, doing your knees, doing your ankles every day is probably one of the best things you could do. The whole kind of shake off, awaken the body, the torso, keeping the rotation in the torso, how important that is. Because you think our jobs now, or our lives, not our jobs, but our lives are on a laptop. And that is so bad for our frame and our physique and our posture and everything. So I'm very aware of that. But maybe I'm overly sensitive because I was a dancer. And I'm a coach and I'm watching them all the time moving.
Yeah. Was it very hard coming back to do, because you performed at the 2012 closing ceremony, which was amazing, I have to say.
Oh, thank you. That was a shock.
Was it a shock to the body?
Well, I think just to my head as well, to kind of go, wow, I've got to get back on that stage and prove that I can still do it. And that's a willpower and a confidence that that's a tough one. And so I did give myself at least 6 to 8 months, no, probably about 8 months to get myself into proper shape because I'd been moving, but I hadn't been in a dancer's shape, as we call it, a classical dancer's shape. And also just to get back on point. And Christopher Wilden, who was choreographing our piece for the closing ceremony of the Olympics. So I had four men to work with, which obviously was very nice. So being partnered by them, and they were all people I knew incredibly well from my career. So that confidence was great, but it was just knowing that it was going to be live. I was only going to have one chance, and that it was going to go across thousands and thousands of people that were going to see it.
Billions, probably.
Yeah, and you have to kind of delete that from your mind, and that's the weird one. And then the kind of other crazy things of coming off a wire at the top of the stadium. I was like, I'll dance, but do I have to do that as well?
Live.
I know, live as well. Who knows?
How many times did you practice that?
Yeah, well, not enough, I don't think. We only could get in the stadium basically in the middle of the night, so around 3:00 in the morning, because of the activities that were going during the Olympics, and that was the only time everything was going to be set up and ready to work on. So trying it then, but we never did it with the pyrotechnics. So I was on a wire with pyrotechnics attached to my frame, not to my body, but to the frame. And I was just, all those strange things that go through your head, like, I think I've got a lot of hairspray in my head. Does that catch light with pyrotechnics? Just stupid things. I was like, you just have to put all that trust in all the extraordinary people that are there to put on that production. And it was an amazing thing to be part of. I still kind of pinch myself to believe that I was really part of that closing ceremony. I mean, the opening ceremony was already phenomenal, but then to be part of the closing and putting the flame out, I think that's what was fun.
Very, very special. Now, today we're going on a style journey.
Yes.
Can you describe what you have put on this morning?
Oh, well, I wouldn't even want to mention what I put on this morning. I did a dog walk, and then I got on a bicycle and cycled here, and it was cold.
You cycled here? Darcy, you didn't tell me that as you walked through the door.
That's why it was so cold. No, so, and also sort of, I do change when I get to the opera house and change my clothes. So I'm probably in a pair of black Zara trousers, which are kind of my staple pair of trousers that I have quite a few of them where I work in those when I'm coaching. And then I have a thermal top on because it was so cold. And then I have a very, very overly fluffy, very, very pink top, which I don't know where it's come from. Is it, I want to say Bowden, but I don't think it's Bowden. It's one of those brands, just a cozy.
But it's a short-sleeved mohair.
Yes, mohair, that's what
crew
you'd say,
neck.
yes. And I've got very large, chunky boots on.
You do. You do. I hope you've warmed up.
I'm very warm now, thank goodness. Yes, I don't feel very chic. The nice thing is working in the opera house, and when you go to a show, you get that opportunity to dress up, so it's really nice. I really enjoy that.
Well, we'll come on to that in a minute. But you grew up between London and Australia?
Mainly London, but yes, we did go to Australia a lot, but I lived in London all my life, yeah.
And were you very aware of your mother's style?
My mother was very eccentric and a fashion designer herself in the 60s and had her own shop in the King's Road. I don't know how long for. So she was immersed in it. And I do remember, I suppose I didn't notice as a young kid, but I always had like a purple jean jacket with studs or a suede patchwork miniskirt with studs. And I always had a pair of cowboy boots. So everything was really out there. And I was just like, great.
And was that very much her style?
I don't know. I think not really.
Or these were your choices?
I think they were my choices, but I had an eccentric palette to choose from. And that probably came from my mother. So, and she gave me that freedom until I got a bit older, and then it kind of turned into the kind of French long socks and the loafers. And I was like, I don't want to wear long socks and loafers. You're like, no, very stylish. You should wear, and it was really, then I think as I got matured as a young girl, then it was very much, you don't do this and you do this and this is how you wear clothes and stuff.
And were you obedient, or did you have any rebellious moments?
No, I thought I was obedient. I think my mum would probably say quite the opposite. I did enjoy the whole costume, putting on the outfit every morning, but I was desperate to fit in as well. So at school, I so badly wanted, I think when I was in the 70s, there was these wonderful kind of folded over ankle boots. Do you remember the suede little boots? And gosh, I loved those. And my mum said, oh, no, your legs are too skinny and knobbly for those boots. And I was like,
those have now become the most famous legs in the world.
I remember I was saying that, no, darling, your legs don't suit those funny little ankle boots. And I said, they're so gorgeous, and you can get them in different colors, like that. And yeah, I remember being quite devastated I didn't get a pair of those.
And how old would you have been then?
I suppose about 8 or 9, when that was kind of really important, that I wanted to be like my friends,
Did you wear a school uniform?
Not until I went to performing arts school.
Yeah.
And that was interesting because we had to, not very nice.
And
uniform.
Any sort of hangover from that, be it
that
colours
was 2
or
years.
textures?
But yeah, the textures, you're so right. It wasn't a nice texture. It felt very nylon-y. So it didn't feel comfortable. And also that when you got wet in your uniform, it smelled strange because of the nylon. I don't know why that was so important when I was young. But
is that still important to you now? Are you
I
sort of
suppose
particularly aware of the smell of...
The feel, definitely.
Yeah.
I love to feel comfortable. But it's funny, I suppose being brought up wearing costumes in the theatre, it's amazing what pain you do go through in an outfit as well. So, but no, the texture, and as long as it wasn't itchy, I hated that. And it's funny, my girls really are the same. Anything, even though if you wanted to wear a pair of glittery tights, do you remember? And they'd be itchy and they're like, I'm not wearing them. And I said, but they look great. And they're like, no, I'm not wearing glittery tights.
But do you have one standout childhood outfit that you sort of remember that really made an impact on you?
I think my dad, he bought me a pair of trainers from America. They were kind of those Adidas kind of 70s running ones with the rubber on the bottom with the stripes. And I thought those were the best things ever. They also helped me run fast. And I thought, wow, and they're from America. How cool, But I think that's, when you didn't get everything internationally. So those trainers were really important. And I think he got me a jacket as well, which was some cool brand as well. And I remember that jacket. But I do have a very funny outfit that my mum framed of me when I was probably about 5 or 6, where I'm in a tutu, but I have my little jean jacket on with my cowboy boots.
Oh.
And I'm being really grumpy and annoying. And I'm in this picture and I've got my hands crossed. And she just thinks that's the best picture ever.
And do you remember the first time that dance, you had a light bulb moment with dance?
I mean, it came late to me because my mum sent me to ballet class every Saturday because I had really knocked knees, and she knew it would strengthen up my posture and my legs because I was quite bendy and flexible. And so it wasn't my love. It wasn't what I wanted to do. She just knew it would be helpful. And it took me, I suppose, probably about 3 or 4 years until I had that moment. And it sort of happened at stage school. So I went to arts educational in the Barbican, and I was there for 2 years. And when I was there, I was like, this is what I've got to do. I've got to go into ballet properly. I can't just do this as one of the interests for the stage. I want to do it really well.
Fantastic. So any rebellious years in, sort of teenage with clothing, hair, makeup?
Apparently I was always rebellious, but I felt quite square. Believe it. I did. I felt, I think because my mum said, if you're going to wear a mini skirt, you can't then have anything else showing upstairs. Not that I had anything to show upstairs, but so it was either one or the other. Legs or cleavage.
Boobs.
Yeah, boobs. She said that was really, really important. You come across really clean, classy, but you can have fun with your wardrobe, but just make sure you don't push those boundaries. And actually I felt it was a great lesson, and you kind of use it everything. I always felt more comfortable in tailored clothes. I wasn't great in things, I suppose, feeling sloppy in.
Yeah.
I felt better, but maybe that was from my dancing.
Yeah. Obviously, leotards are incredibly revealing. They don't leave much to the imagination. And I've always felt that you had such a healthy attitude towards your body and food and your shape. But, I mean, you must get driven very hard in ballet school to be a certain way.
At ballet school, nobody is driving you to be a certain way at all. We are driving ourselves. And I think because of the image of the perfect ballerina, and I think now it's even harder because the image is on your phone every 2 seconds. So they can flick at all these dancers around the world and what is praised or whatever you want to say. But as for me as a dancer, it was how you moved. And I think because I was given quite big roles as soon as I joined the company, and so the ability to get through those roles was incredibly important, and how well I did it. So for me to keep my body healthy and strong, I knew when I wasn't eating enough or I hadn't had enough protein or carbs, or I felt it instantly, and I felt weak and I felt incapable of getting through a work. And so I studied very quickly to understand how I could help my body maintain a healthy weight, but also, because our seasons are very long and very strenuous and, as you say, tough on the body. So it was trying to keep that healthy body and also the stamina and lack of injuries and, all of those things you have to take into account. Because if a dancer doesn't eat and they're not giving themselves the right nutrition, they're not going to get through a season. Yeah. They're going to get a lot of injuries. So it's very obvious. What I think is hard for the public to see is, so they look at these dancers and see these kind of sinewy bodies or long muscles, and is that we don't see the distances that we travel. So if you're looking at a marathon runner, you accept that totally, why their body looks the way it does, because you see the distances they go.
Yeah.
Whereas a classical dancer or any dancer, when they're that sinewy and their bodies being pushed, stretching and strength, it's hard for people to understand. They must be starving themselves to look like that. But no, we're in that studio, as you say, more than 8 hours a day, like a marathon runner. But you just don't see the distance.
Yeah, I mean, you're an elite athlete.
Yeah, very much. And I mean, they like to say, no, we're an artist first. We're not an athlete. But of course, we're an athlete. Yeah, the body is being pushed to that extreme. And if anything, those dancers, they eat incredibly well. I mean, it's very obvious when the ones that don't, and that is tough to see. And because you lose that flexibility in the muscle, the dryness, and the strength. It's very clear that you suddenly can't push. Yeah.
Fascinating. Now we've talked about leotards. Then in the rehearsal room, I noticed that, and I've seen this many times, it's more about functionality, practicality, keeping joints warm. But were you very conscious of that, your rehearsal room look?
Yeah, there was, I came in at that time, it was so lovely, late 80s into the Royal Ballet, where Ashton's, he was still alive and he loved all his dancers in pastels. And it was really obvious and it was lovely. So all the girls would be in these pale blues, pale pinks, pale yellows, all these lovely peachy colors and all different. And then the men, they wouldn't. They'd be in their normal colors, it wasn't important. But
black.
For the women, in black or navy or stuff. But, or white, the guys used to wear sometimes white tights. But, then suddenly into the 90s, that disappeared. And so then it was very kind of black. I remember just wearing black all-in-ones and navy all-in-ones and grey all-in-ones. No colour at all, actually. And then we all had our own personalised kind of leg warmers and everything. I used to only wear one for some reason for a long time, over one hamstring. And everybody used to go, why are you only wearing one leg warmer? And I was like, well, because I've got one hamstring that always bothers me or something like that. But we did have these quirky, personalized outfits, and I think it came from things like fame.
And were you inspired by each other? Was there a sort of competitiveness in the rehearsal room look?
I think if you had a great skirt, if the ballet needed a good skirt and you had a good practice skirt, and everybody would go, oh, you've got a lovely skirt on, and it would kind of be funny how smart you could look, but actually it wasn't that trendy to look too smart. And where now they have really designer leotards and very stylish with little lace underneath and things like that, all different types. And it's much more fashionable to look chic in the studio. And they've all got the right skirts. I mean, they have like an incredible collection of skirts. Mine were horrible or ripped or torn or, and so I'm always really impressed with how good they look now, the dancers in the company.
Can we just talk about men in tights for a second? How did that all start?
Yeah.
What's the history of it? Because sometimes I'll look at a ballet and think, if you look at it from a distance or with your eyes sort of half closed, you sort of, my God, he's naked from the waist down.
Yeah, I suppose it's that silhouette, isn't it? And the physicality that you want to see in a male dancer. And so those
But there's
tights,
no modesty.
Well, why? Why do we need modesty? Really, we're dancers and we're speaking with our body. I mean, for us, it doesn't seem a strange thing at all. I mean, society puts a lot of these boundaries upon us.
So true.
If you go to some countries, they're quite happy to walk around naked,
Yeah, yes.
But, I think there is some dignity in covering up, especially on going to the supermarket, things like that, of course. But if you're on the beach, for us as a dancer, we have to dress a way so that we can be handled and we can move. So to have too much stuff on is ridiculous, or try and cover up is ridiculous. Yeah.
I mean, I've often looked at those ballet costumes and they are absolutely exquisite. Were they all comfortable?
No. I mean, we were very lucky in our company where we had incredible designers that made things look incredibly real. So we had a lot of ballets like the Manon and the Mylings of Kenneth Macmillan's, and a lot of Ashtons where the bodices would be boned. just like they would have been traditionally if it was a period piece, or they would be laced up, So there were things that had to feel and look real from a distance, and you had to move in them so that it was part of that period in the style. And that was important. But that came with its problems, because a bone down the side would start bending, because you have to bend in that bodice.
Yeah.
And of course, these things buckle and they crack or break. And so suddenly you've got a broken bone on the side of your, I say, no, it's a bone in the bodice of the costume.
Yes, exactly.
Not my bone and my body. And so that things like that would happen quite regularly, so they had to replace these things all the time. I mean, I think they got clever and clever where they didn't have to use the real stuff, because also it made a costume very heavy, and you didn't want to, dance in a costume that was heavy either. So to use different materials that maybe look like the more traditional was really helpful. I always used to ask in my tutus, so a ballerina tutu, we always have a bodice. Again, it would be boned. But what I found really hard, because I had a rib cage that I had to breathe in, or if the rolls I did were very exhausting. So I had a stretchy panel put in the back. And I remember asking the designer, I'd really love just a bit of Lycra put in the back. And if you can, if you match the color, that's brilliant. And they're like, I'd be devastated like that. And I said, but it will make all the difference. I will be very, very happy. I won't complain and whinge at all about your costume at all. And I'm like, okay, I think we can allow this.
Because your diaphragm.
Well, exactly. You have to breathe. There was that whole thing, well, don't move your ribs, don't move your ribs. But if you're physically putting everything into it, you need to be able to breathe. And I really noticed that. And I had quite a long body for a classical dancer, which was good. It showed off the hips or the waist or the rib. But you do need to know that you can move in those costumes. So having a little extra panel put in made such a difference. And I always suggest it to a lot of the dancers if they're struggling. I say, have you asked for a stretchy panel?
Good for you.
Go on. If you don't ask, you don't get.
Do you have one standout costume?
Gosh. I mean, I like the costumes where there wasn't much to it, really. I mean, a great flowing skirt was fabulous. I mean, I suppose the Romeo and Juliet costumes where they come under, what do you call that?
The sort of princess line.
Princess line. They were beautiful, and you felt you could move. So you have a full-on body underneath, leotard, and it would be attached to the chiffon. And that felt the best and the freedom of a costume like that, but you felt the flow at the same time, because you always want that ability where you move into something and then it keeps going even though you've stopped, and that is a joy when you're dancing.
Were you ever
roles.
sewn into a costume?
Always, actually.
Really?
Always sewn in, actually.
So no last minute dashes to the loo?
No. I mean, there's tricks, aren't there? But yes, no. It's weird because nerves obviously make you want to go to the loo last minute as well before a show, and you just have to get into a routine where I'm getting sewed in the last minute. Okay, let's go for it, and then you just have to hold everything in.
I mean, so many years of being in leotards and sort of a uniform of sorts. When would you say that you really discovered your personal style DNA?
Well, I think I've said I don't think I have. I think the sad thing is I've been a chameleon because of my life in the theatre, and just always adapted for what somebody, the look they want of you, because you're just wanting to be that muse all the time, and to be accepted. So I always wanted to fall into their image that they wanted to see of me, and that felt good, actually, that I could keep changing, because I never wanted to be boxed into being a certain type of dancer. So to have that flexibility with your outfits made you feel like you could always be a different dancer.
And what makes you feel you?
Now, I suppose I like to feel confident. So my clothes, a lot of people say, oh, you wear trousers a lot, Darcey. And I
know, and your beautiful legs are hidden.
And I don't know, I think because I like to step out. I don't like to be restricted. I have noticed that I used to love wearing pencil skirts when they were really fashionable at one stage. And now I'm like, I couldn't even, really go with that, because I want to be able to be able to stretch when I want to stretch, or step out, or, you know, sit how I want to sit, not to be restricted by my outfit. So I think that's feeling confident in how I'm wearing something. I love wearing jackets. I am a bit obsessed. I've got too many jackets of every style.
Now, if I asked Angus, your husband, to describe your style DNA in 3 words, what 3 words do you think he'd use?
Gosh. He probably, I don't know actually, because I don't think he's that in sync with what my style is anyway. I think something that I can move in. So it will probably have to be flexible, a flexible outfit. He likes more preppy outfits. So if I'm wearing a shirt and a belt on my dress or my skirt or my trousers, he's like, great, like that. So that would be his image of me. So, but as I said, I change my style or look a lot.
But 3 words that are really fundamental to you. So comfort?
Comfort, but something that can be chic if it had to be. And I think he does joke about how many times I change my earrings. And that's probably come from Strictly.
And bling.
yeah, a bit blingy, a bit too blingy with the earrings. So I get a little obsessed with earrings, but that's about it.
Fantastic. Let's talk about Strictly for a moment, because you were a judge on there for 7 years?
Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And were you very much in control of what you wore as a judge?
Yes. I mean, I was very lucky. I had my own stylist, so I didn't have to rely on the in-house. They were busy enough anyway. So that was nice. And so I knew what I felt comfortable in. And of course, you have to keep remembering you're behind a desk, so you don't always get seen. So just what that looked like. And I knew what suited, because I was very broad-shouldered, and it's always nice to be able to see the waist, but very difficult when you're behind a desk. So I was very conscious of those sort of things and what I was happy in. But I also needed to feel that I could move in it. So I didn't get, oh my gosh, sit here for, holding my breath. So that was not the way I was going to work.
And were they very much in control of your hair and makeup?
Well, it had to be part of the whole production.
Yeah.
So if you weren't getting involved and being lazy, then they would tell you. They wanted, okay, you've got to wear a bit more color here today, this weekend. If you think about some sparkle, we'd really like some sparkle this weekend, or something like that. So it was always something, and they would actually say, there would be the odd outfit, they'd say no. And that was really weird, because you'd want to know what was the reason for the no. But it would be often what the other presenters were wearing, and the other judges. So then you kind of understood. I'm like, oh, okay, I understand. Yeah.
And was your stylist with you when you were having your hair and makeup planned?
So, gosh, we would do a couple of weeks, about probably 5 weeks before the show would start, and go through nearly every weekend, which was hard work. And I wasn't very patient there, where we'd go to a fitting and we'd be there and I would try about 30 outfits on.
Bet you loved that.
Yeah. And that was tough. And then I'd go, and maybe 4 weeks later, then I'd do another one of those, because of course, if outfits weren't going to fit with everybody else, you have to always have plan B and C and D. Yeah. So, the stylist had to always be there, because if they said, oh, no, it's not going to work because Tess is wearing so-and-so, or Claudia's wearing this, or so-and-so judge, So it was like, okay, we can do that, we can change. I had some relationships with some lovely designers like yourself, but very hard to ask for these outfits, only because working on the BBC, you're not allowed to publicize what you're wearing, and I understood that, but it didn't seem fair to think, well, I'm going down this route and asking a lot of these designers if I could be seen in that. But I suppose they could publicise.
Well, yes, I was going to say, I remember we publicised when you were looking gorgeous. And
the nice thing is they would often appear in a magazine anyway. So I've been very fortunate to work with, Bruce Oldfield or yourself, Amanda, or Jasper Comran or Catherine Walker. And so really superb clothes that you felt $1 million in. And that, of course, made such a difference with going on live television and having that confidence that you needed.
Yes, I mean, I often talk about clothes being our armour and how we message through clothes, but they're very empowering when, and I don't care what it is, whether it's just a gorgeous sweater or a fabulous evening dress.
The total feeling, you change instantly. And I loved the very simple lines and simple silhouettes. Beautiful. It just so enjoyable. It was like being back in my job as a dancer and wearing those costumes. And that's how I kind of approached it. And I felt incredibly fortunate that I could do that every weekend.
Now, so dressing up for Strictly, what about, you've been photographed thousands of times. Do you feel you're sort of in control of your image? Have you ever been taken out of your comfort zone when you're being photographed for a spread in a magazine?
A lot of the time, actually. And I think because of my job as a dancer, I was really comfortable with that. I wanted to constantly come out of my comfort zone and test my look. And obviously I'm not always pleased with it, but it was part of the experiment of being an artist, I think. Yeah. And I didn't want to be safe. I hated being safe.
That's a very refreshing attitude towards it. What would you say was your worst fashion moment?
There was plenty. There were so many. No. Oh my gosh. I think, it's when the whole thing is done, isn't it? When they permed my hair for a photo shoot. Gosh, it was not good.
Permed your hair?
Well, literally, I don't know how they curled it so tight. It looked totally permed. And I have quite a lot of hair. That's why I think I tie it up all the time. So to have it down and to have that amount of curl in it that was tight, I kind of looked like a triangle. And in it wasn't great. And I think it's only because your face, what you're used to seeing your face look like with a certain hairstyle and outfit. And I think because the hair was just too busy for then the dress. And so when you've got a busy dress and busy hair, it's so true, isn't it? You've got to calm that down or flourish that up, or the other way around. You can't have both. And I just remember wearing this ginormous dress that had a little bit too much frill and my hair was big.
Do you remember who the dress was by?
No, I don't. I can't say that.
Well, you could say who the magazine was.
I no.
You are so polite.
No, I can't. I mean, I get so inspired by those photographers. That was the joy. And I have to say, I think their style probably was very inspiring to my own feel and look. So working with those certain photographers really made a difference to how I felt when I went out again in the real world. And it was that inspiration that they gave me. So it's not always just the designer that you expect to make the influence on you, but very much the photographer and how they set the whole image of how they wanted to capture you. And that was a really exciting part of being a dancer, because photographers wanted to work with you. And I felt like, wow, this is the best thing ever. It's like having another choreographer, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, talking photographers, you don't have one portrait in the National Portrait Gallery. You've got 9. Not necessarily.
Have I?
You do, apparently. Do you have a favourite image of you?
Not really. Well, I got...
You must have a favourite picture.
Not really. Everything's so different. I couldn't really say. I suppose... Not really. I have a lovely picture that Brian Adams gave of me, because obviously he's an incredibly talented photographer. And he did a picture of me, I think for an exhibition of women that that were inspiring to him for a certain reason, and he wanted to raise money doing this collection. And he gave me this picture, and it's very large, and I put it away somewhere. Not many people can see, but I'm wearing an Alexander McQueen dress, which is transparent, comes right up to my neck and to my wrists, and it's long, but it's see-through, and it has the moon on it. And it's just that, I suppose it's kind of like, it's like Greek image, like a statue that he got. I don't know, it's just very cool. I didn't think, I had very high heel shoes on, I do remember that. And I'm sort of in a dancing position. So yeah, it just feels very cool. For the first time I felt cool.
And you naked underneath?
Basically, yes. I mean, yes. Not literally, yes.
Talking heels, can you wear heels? Do you wear heels?
Yeah.
Or are your feet just...
No, I'm very happy in heels. I choose not to wear them. I mean, I wore them a lot on Strictly, and I've danced in heels, which I never used to. But I suppose from wearing a point shoe, which is what the classical dancer wears, it's not that different.
Yeah.
So that pain is not as bad as wearing a point shoe either. So
lucky you is all I can
so
say.
A lot of people don't feel like that. But yeah, I wouldn't choose to wear them for too long now. I know the change they make. I worked with Alan Jones, the artist, pop artist, and he did a portrait, National Portrait Gallery, and he was fascinated with that look of the leg and the line of the high heel shoe. And so when I went on point, he was like, oh my gosh, it's even more extreme. How is that possible? So he was fascinated with that line. And I love those. And that is the kind of the silhouette looks, isn't it? Where you can see photographers and artists trying to get that silhouette and how different it is for them to see your image in different silhouettes. So it's very cool.
What did you wear to get married to Angus back in 1997?
A Neil Cunningham.
Yeah.
So yes, I was very fortunate to work with Neil for quite a few years when he had his shop, right near Piccadilly it was. And I wore his clothes for many different events. I just love that he had that era of the Audrey Hepburn, of the 1940s, 30s as well. And everything was very simple and clean, beautiful, nothing, no affectations to his detail. And so I felt really comfortable in them. Just
describe it to me.
Well, my dress,
yes.
My wedding dress. Well, it was really weird. It was a high neck. So it had a bodice, a very simple bodice. And I had a big full skirt that was flat at the front and big at the back. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that how you describe them? When they're flat and then they go out. So I had a small trail, but not too much. And I had a kind of that see-through organza over the top. Then that covered me up to here. And I had a big it wasn't a ruffle, but it was a soft, wavy neck frill. It sounds horrendous, doesn't it? But then lovely long sleeve that had the same on the sleeve. It was really simple, but sounds very detailed. And then I had small, tiny little daisies stitched over the whole thing that, of course, you couldn't tell at first what they were. They probably just looked like little spots, but they were little white daisies.
Do you have a style icon?
Yeah, I suppose Audrey Hepburn has always been, I mean, I know she's a style icon for so many, but I suppose it was her as a person as well. You know, I did a documentary on her and knew that she was desperate to be a professional dancer.
Really?
Yeah, she came to London and came to the Rambert, which was the British ballet, and wanted to be a professional dancer and trained with a lot of people that coached me. And I suppose her style, and I loved the things she always said. She said, well, before I would leave the house, I would take at least 2 to 3 things off.
I love that.
Yes.
I do try and abide by that.
And it's such a good rule, isn't it?
Great advice. Yeah. It really
because,
is.
Of course, you get a bit carried away and like, oh, we're going out. Oh, this will be fun. And then you're like, no, definitely not those. Yeah, and it's so healthy. And I totally see her. You know, and I've always watched all her films and loved everything she's done. So I suppose that obsession with how she looked in films, but also somebody like Katharine Hepburn as well, because she had that where she wear the kind of the man's suit, but look incredibly feminine, even though she was this strong, outspoken woman. I love her as well for those contrasts, you know.
And incredibly sexy, actually, and powerful.
Yes, incredibly sexy for somebody who, you know, for her time would have been very unfavored to be so outspoken as a woman and kind of opinionated, which is just so cool.
Now, you were appointed OBE in 1995, a CBE in 2006, and an incredible DBE in 2018. All for services to ballet and dance. I mean, congratulations.
Thank you.
So well deserved. These are really important moments. What did you wear in 2018 when you became a dame?
Wow. I do remember my outfit. I'm trying to remember the designer. Can't remember the designer.
Describe the outfit to me.
Well, it was a bit last minute, I have to say.
Now, why?
I can't remember why I ran out of time. You know, you should never run out of time for an opportunity like that. And the whole, you know, fun and honor of it all.
But you've been there twice before.
No, it wasn't that at all. It was, with the kids and work and everything. And I did feel rushed. And I remember being very lucky and being given everything to wear. And I suppose that also changed everything. So I remember going to the milliner, and that was in the King's Road, and saying, "These are my colours, but I'd like something small," and just leaving it with her. I know, crazy. So I don't think I really planned that very well, but I enjoyed it. I had a dress on that had big flowers on it. My dad didn't like it, but I actually felt really fun in it. And I had a little pink jacket, which, if anything, I probably should have worn that the whole time, but it was a really hot day. So I didn't get to wear the little pink jacket, which I was really upset about. So that would balanced it all out a bit. So yes, that probably.
And who presented you?
The Queen.
The Queen. How
I know.
lovely.
I was so fortunate for all my honours. I had the Queen, and of course you don't know it's going to be the Queen.
No, you don't know
you
until
never
the
get-
morning
no.
of, do you?
Well, yeah. I mean, they literally tell you as soon as you walk in. So that is the joy, and I suppose the bit of excitement of it all is who's going to give you honour. Yeah.
Can we talk about hair, makeup, and manicures just for one moment?
Don't look at my hands.
Well, we can talk about hair and makeup then. Actually, in the ballet, do you always have your makeup and hair done for you?
Your makeup usually yourself.
Do you?
Yeah. I mean, things have slightly changed, but it was only normally hair that was always done. And that's also because it has to be a certain way or a certain style for the certain ballet, but also it mustn't fall out.
Yes.
As you can imagine.
And you've got a lot of hair.
I've got a lot of hair. I was actually told when I was at school, maybe I should have it thinned. And I was like, oh, no, you can't do that. And thank goodness I never did. But certain styles were difficult, so we wouldn't do those ourselves. It would only be occasionally. But makeup, it was so much more efficient to do it ourselves. I mean, the principals do have makeup artists now, so before a show that they can get ready and book themselves in. And that whole schedule before you prepare for a show is incredibly important, how you plan that so that you're not ready too early and, all that, and not too late.
Yep.
So that was very important. But I kind of got mine down to an efficient time that we always spent about 2 hours to prepare for a show. And I know that sounds probably ridiculously too long, but we'd have to fit in a warm up as well.
Yes.
Then the girls, of course, our point shoes, how many shoes we wanted ready and prepared for a performance would depend on the show as well. And then the whole costumes or other things that you'd want to go through to make sure everything felt right. It didn't matter how many times you've done that show, you would do the same prep every time.
And so a point shoe wouldn't last you an entire show?
It's so dependent because
Role,
if you,
I suppose.
yeah, the role, I mean, you couldn't, if it was a 3-act ballet, I mean, some dancers can wear one pair of point shoes for 3 acts, but be pretty rare. Only because you want them you don't want them rock hard to start with. They have to be quiet, and that's really important because nobody wants to hear clogs going across the stage. So they have to be quiet. And so that preparing them for that role, and especially if it's more jumps or it's more turns or it's more balances, every role is slightly different. So the shoe also has to be adapted for that role.
What is in a point shoe?
Yes, what is in? So there's no block. They're called blocks, or some brands they call them block, but it is only glue and papier-mâché and canvas with a satin
God,
edge.
it sounds so uncomfortable.
Yeah, it does. But weirdly, I mean, you do it for so many years, and also the build-up of getting used to being on point because it's so unusual. I mean, health and safety would never even dream of putting anybody in a point shoe anymore. But hopefully they never take us out of them because that's our uniqueness. That's what makes us different. That's what's special. And also the technique in the point shoe is unique. What we can do in a point shoe and how that creates something, a piece of magic, and the quality and everything about it, and that history. So it is an unusual thing, and the strength of the actual foot and the ankle is incredibly important before you ever work in a point shoe.
And the toe too. Toes up.
Well, obviously toes that are more the same length.
Yeah.
It sounds really weird.
No, but I can really see that.
100 times better for longevity and less injuries or stress fractures or anything like that through the feet. But if I've got very angled toes, then you have more problems.
Coming to your wardrobe.
Sounds so silly. My wardrobe.
Is it phenomenally organised?
I feel it's organised. A lot of other people wouldn't say that.
Do you have a stylist? Do you still work with a stylist?
No, I
for
don't.
those?
I do it all myself, and so I make still plenty of mistakes.
Do you have one item of clothing that means the most to you?
Well, that's a really nice question. I have a Ralph Lauren jacket that I don't think will ever go out of date. And it's something, isn't it, about that?
Describe it to me.
Well, I have one fun one, which is like a bomber jacket, which is red with the stripes on the shoulder, and it's got polo on the back or something, I don't know. And it's a real vintage piece now, and I'm so glad I've held on to it. And then I just have the classic blazer, and I don't know, something, and I have an Armani one I remember getting in a sale, which is really sparkly, and that is a beautiful tailored sparkly jacket, and it's a brown sparkle, and it's fitted to the waist, it crosses over, and then it just flares out on the hip. I get very attached because everything comes from a memory for me, and that's a real problem, isn't it? So
not at all.
I don't know.
It's almost a diary, I think, sometimes.
Yeah.
As long as you've got the space to hold on to that diary.
Well, I've really admired my mum because she's hung on to an amazing, like, Aussie Clark clothes because she knew Aussie Clark, and just these wonderful wardrobe of, brilliant outfits.
Yeah. I mean, let's talk about sustainable fashion for a moment. What's your approach to that?
I think that's incredibly important. I mean, my girls are very clear that they just want to buy secondhand good clothes.
Lovely.
And I'm like, wow, I'm so impressed because I get bored very quickly. So that's why my wardrobe's a little bit big than it should be, because I do enjoy going out and looking for new stuff. It's a bit of therapy for me. I don't always buy, but I do enjoy the whole search. That's why I'm not very good as an online shopper at all. But I do respect now that going out there and buying secondhand clothes is brilliant. Actually, I saw a brilliant dress of yours, a suede mini dress. Ooh. Oh, it was like a navy suede, and it was just cut away quite tight under the armpits, like quite low, and just short here in a secondhand shop. And I was like, I don't think I can fit into that, sadly. Oh. But I did want to buy it for my daughter, one of my girls, because I thought, oh, she'll wear that. And I thought, I won't buy it right now. I'll come back. And I think it went.
They do.
Funny that.
They do. I know.
But I was so impressed that I saw it. I was like,
Oh,
"It's around
lovely.
Wakeley's."
I love it. I love walking past a secondhand shop and seeing a piece in the window, and you just sort of think that's on its a whole another journey.
And it's been loved. It's like, moving into a new house or flat or something. It's been loved by somebody else, and then you're going to give it that love as well.
Let's spin on to some quick fire questions. Okay. What fashion advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Keep it simple.
Which fashion trend or era would you most like to see make a comeback?
The 30s.
Fashion or beauty trend you would consign to Room 101?
The 80s.
Last impulse buy?
A Zara dress. That.
Views on tattoos?
No.
Beauty treatment you couldn't give up?
Hair. I couldn't give up hair.
High end or high street?
I think it has to be high end because then you have a piece that lasts forever.
Bling or pear?
Bling.
Minimalism or maximalism?
Minimalism.
Crocs, cute or puke?
Puke.
Sneakers or stilettos?
Sneakers.
Boyfriends or wide legs?
Wide legs.
Bodycon or boho?
Oh, boho.
Sports luxe or rock chick?
Rock chick.
Red carpet or relax?
Oh, I'm really mixed there. That's a weird one. That's two extremes. I think red carpet.
Trend or style?
Trend.
Colour or monochrome?
Colour.
Experimental or uniform?
Experimental.
Cashmere or cotton?
Cashmere.
Beanie or beret?
Beanie.
Hoarder or editor?
Hoarder.
Shapewear or lingerie?
Lingerie.
Tights or stockings?
Tights.
Bikini or one piece?
One piece.
Finally, traditional last question at the end of the day. What do you or don't you wear in bed?
I wear a pair of shorts. That sounds really weird. Like boxers.
Anything on top?
Depends how I'm feeling. If I'm feeling cold, I will wear a t-shirt, but nothing too fancy.
Darcey, thank you so much for your fun and insightful conversation. It's been brilliant to talk all things clothes and ballet with you.
Lots of fun. Thank you so much. I enjoyed it.
Great.